What's up, HyperFast Agent Nation? On this show, we have a special guest. He has been a basketball coach. He's coached Fortune 500 companies, tons of top real estate agents. He's spoken on several stages, including 10X with Grant Cardone. Welcome to the show, Coach Micheal Burt. All right, welcome to the show, Micheal. It's great to have you on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, before we dive into your amazing background and all the different people in, multiple industries that you've helped, why don't you give our listeners here a brief description of who you are and how you got to where you are today?
Found my voice very early in life. At 15, started coaching junior pro basketball and immediately fell in love with coaching people. Was a head coach at 18 years old at an elementary school, won a state championship at 18 while I was in college, went to the second largest high school in Tennessee at 19 as an assistant coach while I was in college and became the head coach, which made me the youngest head coach in the state of Tennessee at the second largest high school by 22 years old. And then I spent a decade of my life building a national championship program, but I was using very unique methodology. I was using the whole person theory that I learned from Dr. Stephen Covey. I was building competitive intelligence in the players. My players were smarter, more connected. They played harder. And so people were constantly asking me, what are you doing with the kids, man? And I said, I don't have time to explain it. So I started writing all these books behind me. I said that would be one of, I think I've got 16 out in the market now. And I just started writing books about how I was winning games. And people began to hire me, Dan, to come out and speak to their people, State Farm, National Healthcare, real estate companies, mortgage companies. And so I would go out and speak for maybe an hour on one of my books, and then those companies begin to hire me or want to hire me to be their coach. I stayed 6 more years till I was 31 years old. I retired from athletic coaching. I was the number one coach in the Southeast, one of the top 5 coaches in the country. And I retired to start what would become a multi-million-dollar coaching company. So all we do today is coach people from all walks of life, baby stars, what I call little stars with lots of potential, all the way up to big stars that are doing, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow. How was it starting off coaching people that were, not much different from you in age? Like, was it ever hard or for them to accept or
I think
weird?
Yeah, I think, because I was 19 coaching 18-year-olds, but I think I carried myself in a very professional manner. And I always was kind of that kid that people said, that's the next up and coming dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always carried myself as if I was already a head coach because I had this dream. And the dream was not to be an assistant coach or a freshman coach. Like, I wanted to be the head coach. And I remember coaching a game and I wore something that looked a little sloppy. And the men's coach, I was on the women's side, the men's coach called me over after the game. And I think I wore a sweater that was a little too long on me, or you know what I'm saying. And the men's coach called me over, who was this former college basketball coach. And he did this right here. And I went over after a game. And he said, son, do you want to be a head coach? And I said, absolutely. Like, that's my dream. Like, I want to be the next great head coach. And he said, well, don't ever dress like that again.
Wow.
And he gave me this real hard coaching. And I was like, dang, man, you're not even my boss. Like, you're the men's coach. I mean, my boss didn't say anything to me. But what he said to me was like, look, start carrying yourself like you're a big time person. Go pro, man. Quit being amateur in your thoughts and how you dress and how you carry yourself. Start acting like you're the real deal. And I've never forgotten it. I actually really appreciated that hard feedback.
Yeah. And what a blessing that he was able to give that to you, because a lot of people might not care. And great of you to take it as very, constructive criticism or help. So That's a pretty cool story. I think a lot of people maybe box themselves in to where they are right now because of age or their background or where they're from. So it's really refreshing to kind of hear your story and that you were able to think about the next level and not be put in a box, right? So I'm sure a lot of people struggle kind of getting out of the box that they think they should be in.
Yeah, and I think, if you study the numbers, 67% of people say they're going to work every day that they're disengaged with. They're there physically, but they're not there mentally. They're not there emotionally. They secretly, Dan, want to transition to something bigger. They just don't know how to do it, right? And I wrote about that in my book, Single Digit Millionaire. How did I go from a high school basketball coach to a millionaire? How did I go from a high school basketball coach to speaking on stage at 10X? How did I go from a high school basketball coach to having a jet? How did I go from making $50,000 a year for 10 years, to generate millions of dollars in this new industry? And it was the first part of being that coach for 10 years was instrumental in the whole thing, right? Like it was like 10 years of working a muscle, 10 years of getting better, 10 years of learning a skill. And I think too many people, unfortunately, just give up. Like they get to a point in life and they just say, this is it, man. This is as good as it's going to get. This is the best life I'm going to have. This is the most money I'm going to make. This is the most deals I'm going to do. And they literally their spirit gets kind of crushed and they don't transition to what they're truly capable of becoming. This is why I think people need a coach in their life. A good coach can see something in you, can challenge you to become something you didn't think you knew to become.
Do you think their spirit gets crushed, or do you think they just, maybe a lot of them never even really try, or they say they want, X, Y, and Z, but the effort and what they do doesn't, long term doesn't match that?
Well, I'm writing a book on this right now called Flip the Switch. And it's a book about how to activate the prey drive in a person, PREYDRIVE. Prey drive is prevalent in animals, specifically dogs. And a dog sees something and has that killer instinct, right, to go get it. Well, I believe after 28 years of coaching that humans have a prey drive. The problem is it's never been activated. It's never been activated. So it's there, but it's not alive. It's dormant. So what happens is the first step is they haven't been exposed to something. Like I haven't seen. Like what part of the country do you live in?
My business is in DC, but
Yeah.
I'm living down in Florida right now during the lockdown. So.
Okay. So, I remember the first time I went to big cities, the first time I saw how fast, these things happen. And like my mind opened up to a new possibility. I remember the first time I stayed in a nice hotel. I remember the first time like a lot of people are never exposed to these things. Therefore, they never think bigger. And this is a big problem. Like this one, I love the paragraph. I think it's the second paragraph in the first page of The Richest Man in Babylon. It says, every action we take is driven by our thoughts. Our thoughts are no wiser than our understandings. In essence, when we have small thoughts, we take small action, we get small outcomes. And until we get exposed to something, many times our prey drive is not activated. So we literally just go through the motions. We just go to our job. We just keep doing this, repeating the pattern until somebody comes along and go, man, look, you could do something bigger. And it was for me, Dan, I spoke when I was 25 years old. I wrote my first book and I spoke at an elementary school basketball banquet. Okay. They didn't pay me. They fed me. And when I was finished, this dude in the back came up to me and he said, man, you're good. He's like, you could go on the circuit. And I'm like, what do you mean circuit? He's like, well, coaches like Lou Holtz and these successful coaches go out and speak and they make millions of dollars writing books and speaking. And he's like, man, you have a cadence and a rhythm and you have something to say. And I was like, okay. So I went home that night and I literally watched hours and hours of video of coaches, successful coaches, football, basketball, that were speaking. And I would look down there at Lou Holtz and he wrote a book and he was coaching Notre Dame. And he also was speaking. He was charging $100,000 per speech. And that night I was like, okay, I see what he's doing here. And it kind of awakened something in me like, man, I'm going to be a successful coach. I'm going to win championships. And then I'm going to show other people how to win championships in life, in business, in the world. And it really activated that prey drive in me. So a lot of people, if they don't have that experience, they never get out of that static position.
So was that the inflection point for you? Is, speaking at that banquet, having that random person make that observation to you, and then you kind of sought out and went to find examples of that, and then saw people doing it, and you know decided, I guess, internally, hey, that could be me.
Yeah, I had a desire, like many people do, to help other people. Like I was a young coach. I've been coaching since I was 15. I was now 25. I've been through some knockdowns, some breakdowns, some breakthroughs, made mistakes. And I really had this desire to help other people, like young coaches, to be honest with you. I really was want to help young coaches. My first book was a book called Changing Lives Through Coaching. I would come back many years later and write this book, which is called Everybody Needs a Coach in Life, which would kind of be my life's work. And the interesting thing is, I really wrote this book when I was 25. I just didn't have a lot to say because I was young. And so I came back and wrote it in my late 30s. And, but I had this desire to help people. This is very important for people out there because now I'm coaching coaches. Like now I have programs that coach people who have a desire to help people, but they don't know how to do it. And so I'm teaching them how to speak, how to coach, how to train, how to lead, how to get on stages, how to create products. I'm really teaching people how to coach because 81% of Americans say they want to write a book. That's 200 million Americans believe they have something that would be of value to another person. They just don't know how to do it. And because I've done it for, 28 years now, I'm now coaching coaches in how to be coaches or how to build coaching businesses. So I had that desire in me, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have a coach, a mentor. So I just wrote a book and I didn't really even know what I was doing. But when I wrote the book, now I have a message. When you got a message, now people were asking me to speak. When I would go speak, then they would say, well, will you come back? And I'm like, well, I'm coaching basketball. Can't really come back. And then some of those people started to pay me more in an hour than I made in a whole month. I would go speak for an hour, like a big company, like Dell Computers, and they would pay me more in an hour than I made in working, 80 hours a week. And I'm like, man, there's something to this. Like they like it. I like it. But I hadn't won a championship yet. So I didn't feel like I should leave. So I stayed until I won a championship. And then my school would go on to win 7 of the next 9 championships.
Oh, wow. And then were you there for all of those, or did
No,
you
I was
left?
there basically building the foundation for 10 years. I won the first one in the school's history. And then the next coaches that came in won 7 more after me.
All right. So when you transitioned and went to full-time, coaching, speaking, how did you grow it from, what it was then to now? How did you, how do you scale a coaching company or a business, like
Yeah.
information business like that?
It seems very difficult to scale. And I really struggled with this for many years. And I worked my butt off, Dan, just to be honest with you. I would take on early on, I would speak and then companies would hire me to be their coach. And they would say, here's, we're going to give you 500 people in these 43 banks, in these 38 cities, and you're in charge of helping us drive, $1 billion of revenue. And I would literally coach all 500 people. So I'd come up with the curriculum, the strategy, and I would coach these people, but it was incredibly demanding on me because that wasn't the only company I would take on. I would take on like 5 of those. And, but what I learned by taking on 5 of those is how to do it. How do I coach? How do I coach people in insurance? How do I coach real estate people? How do I coach mortgage people? I spent 4 years in the prison system rehabilitating of maximum security offenders in the state of Tennessee. That was fascinating to go into the maximum security prisons and try to turn a person's life around. And, so I learned all these tactics and strategies to deal with people of all walks of life, all backgrounds, how to connect to a person, how to disarm a person from being nervous, how to really bring a solution to them, how to get them excited about their future, how to build a coaching curriculum that could drive results and sales. And so, but what I figured out is I kept running into the same problem. I'd get to the same level of revenue every year. And I'd be like, how am I going to scale this? Tired. Like no matter how much energy you got, there's only so many people you can coach. So then we went, it was actually Grant Cardone, who I met in 2012. And he asked me to do the original 10X with him in Riviera Maya, Mexico. There were 75 people there. I met him there, Bradley there, Bradley's coming into Nashville to spend some time with me this weekend because I'm coaching him in how to package his content. And it was when I went to that conference, I'm talking about my coaching model and all this. And Cardone looks at me and he said, look, man, I need you to quit talking like that. Quit talking so small. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm trying to dominate Nashville, Tennessee, right? And he's like, no, your market is planet Earth. You need to figure out a way to deliver your coaching services to anybody on the planet. And so I came back and I started studying these scalability models. So I studied the fastest growing churches in the United States. I actually wrote a book called The Accountable Church, that white book over my shoulder, on how churches stay dynamic. How do they have 78,000 members? How does one pastor, right, teach 80,000 people on a Sunday? And so I started studying those and then replicating those models. So now I have X number of people in my coaching program around the world, other countries. I teach, like this afternoon, I'm doing a call. They're all over the world. On Wednesday, I teach for an hour. They're all over the world. And we simulcast it out. And then I only take on so many companies at a time that typically pay six figures for me to be their coach. And then I started adding coaches. That
was going to be my second question or follow-up is, did you add people? And so I'm guessing now you're coaching those people how to coach your clients, basically.
But it hasn't been as successful that way as I wanted it to be. We had certified coaches. And in some pockets, some markets are very successful. Let's say you're in DC and you're one of my certified coaches and you're great at selling and you're great at closing and you're great at delivering. You may have a successful market teaching my content, but then I may have somebody in, Kansas City, Missouri, that's a total failure at delivering my content. They don't know how to sell it. They don't know how to get people in the room. They don't know how to, you see what I'm saying? So what I've done now, instead of having these coaches, is I simulcast it. I use a church model where it's like I'm the pastor and I'm simulcasting it around the world. And we have online academies through Lightspeed with Brad Lee. And, I take on X number of companies and I have an executive coach. So people that pay $25,000 and above, they typically don't get me. They get our executive coach, and he's coaching them in how to build, grow, and scale their businesses. He's 60 years old. He's sold a business for millions of dollars, and they get me at events because I love events. I love the boot camps. I love the live events. So what they do is they get me some and they get him some. And that's the way we do it now.
Gotcha. And what would you say, you kind of mentioned it earlier that you have a certain method, what's your secret sauce if you can kind of boil it down in the time we have here?
The secret sauce is what is in the monster growth system. I write about this in a book called Inside the Mind of a Monster, because my coaching program is called Monster Producer. Funny enough, my wife wrote a book called Living with a Monster, which is, that's that book over here, which is how you live with an obsessed person like me, an obsessed personality like mine. And I think her book could outsell my book any day because it really solves a problem for people. But my methodology is 6 parts. 1, activation of prey drive. Until the prey drive is activated in a person, nothing happens. And there are activators of this drive based on my 28 years of experience. Okay. So I use all of those activators: competition, fear of loss, exposure, environment, embarrassment. These are all activators. These are all activators of a person's prey drive. Each person has their own activator. What activates yours may not activate somebody else's. So I first start with activation of prey drive. I then move to explanation of service. How do you explain your services in a world-class way, right? In a framework. I then moved to a selling system called legacy selling, where I teach you how to generate leads through relationship selling. Then I moved to how you follow up. Okay. Then I moved to how you extract referrals. Then I moved to how you become a person of interest. Now that attracts business to you. Now I've written books on every one of those subjects. So that system is a system I coach. The beauty of the system is this: I can coach any person in any industry through that system. And I guarantee you, I don't care if they're doing $1,000 or $1 billion, there's somewhere in that system that they're losing money. Maybe they're great at driving leads, but they're terrible at how they explain their services. Or maybe they're great at driving leads, but they're terrible about working them to completion. Maybe they're great at driving leads, but they're terrible with follow-up. Maybe they're great with having a bunch of business, but they don't know how to get referrals. Maybe it's they're somewhere in that system, I find missing structures. And I've had billion-dollar companies, billion-dollar divisions of companies go, man, we're losing millions of dollars right there. Like we do a terrible job following up after the sale. Like we bought something the other day from a very successful person in our industry. I wanted to learn from the person. So I got excited. I bought it for my team, but they didn't send us any way to consume it. So there's a glitch in their system that they didn't send out the information for me to actually consume the service. So they didn't have as many people participate. And then they had disappointed customers. And then they had, right? So there's somewhere that we're all losing money, all of us, including me, that many times you just can't see because you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. And I bring the structure and go, Dan, I bet you're losing money, right? You're losing money in one of these areas, and let's pick where it is. If I just help you with that one thing, you're going to make more money.
Yeah, I think that's the advantage of a coach, is that even if you're operating at a super, super high level, like someone with an outside perspective that's had experience in looking at other top producers, like they might see the blind spot or the leak, the small leak that's costing you thousands or even more before you ever see it.
Yeah, many times you're just, I had a course when I was working on my doctorate in assumption and bias, and I couldn't understand. Like I was getting a leadership degree. This is my third degree, and I was like, why am I in this course? Like it's crazy. Here's what I figure out: we all bring our own assumption and bias and prejudgment to every equation, based on our own experiences. Right? I can't see the picture when I'm inside the frame. I'm too close to it. I'm too emotional about it. I'm too prideful about it. Like I need somebody to come in and go, no. You're looking at this all wrong. Like you're losing money here, here, and here. If you just focus on this. And many times it's the exposure to another person. Like it was the exposure to Cardone when I was, 8 years ago, to go, oh yeah, man. Like, why am I not selling to people all over the planet? Why am I only selling to people in Nashville where I live? Like, this is crazy. Like I needed another person. Then I needed Brad Lee to come along and go, you need your own online academy, man. So people can be training by you every day. Like I needed these people to walk into my life and go, you're thinking like this and you need to be thinking like this. Okay. And so I'm grateful, but also I'm coachable. I'm humble. I'm open to anything, closed off to nothing. Like I'm open. When people give me hard feedback or critical feedback, I'm grateful for that.
What are some of the biggest areas or most common areas for improvement that you've seen when you're coaching real estate agents? Because I know you mentioned that you've coached a lot of real estate agents, including some of the top producers. So what are some of those, common mistakes or things that need to be improved that you see in real estate agents?
I think, I'm coaching a team in Houston right now. It's doing about 150 million. I'm coaching one top agent here in Tennessee that I helped go from number 43 to number 4 in the market. He's doing about 160 deals per year. I coach the number 1 agent in South Carolina. What I see is the number one problem is they don't see their business as a business. They see themselves as realtors. I try to teach people how to be businessmen and businesswomen. You are a specialist. Okay. You have a very special skill set in something: negotiating, networks, marketing, regulating emotions in people. You are not just a realtor. This is the problem. There's hundreds of thousands of realtors. You need to think of yourself as a businessman or a businesswoman that has a very special skill set. Like I'm the number 1 negotiator in the state of Florida. Like I can get more money per square foot than any other person on new home construction. So I try to teach the agents I coach how to be people of interest around the book that I wrote. And the agents that really latch onto this concept write their own books, have their own shows, do their own things, right? Have their own podcast. What they're trying to do is create a separation. Like I've got one right now I'm working with to have his own restaurant. And he's asking me, should I do it? I'm like, of course you should do it. Not because you're going to make money at the restaurant, but because it gives you brand recognition. And people are going to come to your restaurant and you're going to sell them real estate deals. And they're going to be relaxed. And even if they have a beer or have some food, like what other real estate agent in our market has their own restaurant? You'd be the only one. So I'm trying to get him to brand himself. So I come in with
is the restaurant going to be branded, his name or the real estate company's name?
It'd be branded his name. So he positioned himself as Good Time Tommy. So he's like this fun, upbeat, likes to party, but serious, great negotiator. So he's going to call it Good Time Tommy's Bar and Grill. And it's going to be a place like me and Vaynerchuk believe the same thing on this. Every major person needs their own restaurant. Like you go to Chicago, you go to Jordan's restaurant, right? You go to, you see what I'm saying? Like I'm friends with Johnny Caraba, the original Caraba who founded Caraba's restaurants. You know, he uses that restaurant, man. Like you go to his restaurant and the way he works that room, it's full every night. He's having, drinks with this person. He's having dinner with this person. Major real estate deals are happening. Like if I could ever talk my wife into it, I'm going to have a restaurant.
I've never thought of that concept, but that's very, very interesting. So I want to.
Well, I mean, people.
I want to follow along and see
Yeah.
see how it does for good time.
People make big decisions when the neocortex of the brain is involved, and the neocortex only gets involved when the mind is relaxed, which is why people buy real estate on the weekends. Okay, it's why if you could get me to dinner and we're talking, you get my dreamer opened up, and when my dreamer's opened up, it's like, oh yeah, like I'm looking at some real estate in Nashville this week for a concept I have called a greatness factory, and greatness factories are unique destination locations for the greatest people in the community to come together. They've got podcast studios, gym, meditation, spa, training facilities, offices for rent, private club. I mean, it's like a cool space. And I'm looking at this space in Nashville. It's $30,000 a month for rent. It's downtown Nashville. It's $45 a square foot, but man, it's prime real estate. I'm talking right above Broadway. And I've got a condo right on top of this building. And here's the deal. You get me in the right mindset, the right location, maybe over dinner. You help me, you show me how I can make millions of dollars with it. I'd be open to doing it. You catch me on a Monday morning when I'm trying to run my business and coach 17 people at the same time, like I may not be open to it. So you got to understand, catch people when their dreamers are open. And typically that's on the weekend for a lot of people when their mind is relaxed. They let their mind out to play. Study billionaires. Almost every self-made billionaire had their big idea when their mind was relaxed, not when they were in a pressure situation. They weren't in a pressure situation. Go, oh, I got $1 billion idea. Had $1 billion idea when they're, somewhere doing something, goofing off. I call it creative loafing.
Yeah, I train for Ironmans and do a couple a year. And I tend to, like, when I'm running or biking for, an hour or two, like that's kind of when some of my creative thoughts come alive, when I'm just kind of zoned out running, actually.
100%. Absolutely. I mean, that's your mind has permission to run wild then, right?
What are some ways that, real estate agents that maybe don't have the capital yet to open a restaurant, that they can put a buyer or a seller into this dreamer or relaxed mode? I mean, is it just, serving them food, wine, whatever, like how do they get people to get in this relaxed mindset and make decisions about housing without going to the lengths of opening a restaurant, because not everyone's there yet?
Absolutely. I think you got to understand that there's ways to win in real estate. One is you should be prospecting every day for a minimum of 2 to 4 hours a day, every day. You look at the top real estate agents doing over 100 deals. I've coached the top real estate agent in South Carolina who's making $1.7 to $2 million a year in a town of 7,000 people. He prospected every day from 9 to 11. He dressed up every day. That was his style. He went to lunch every day with somebody influential in the community. And then he spent all afternoon solving real estate problems. So he had a very simple philosophy. I prospect in the morning. I solve the world's problems in the afternoon. And he was doing 160, 175 deals a year in a town of 7,000. Most agents do not have the discipline to do that every day. They just don't prospect enough. So their volume is not high enough. Their numbers are not enough. Now, the guy I'm coaching that's going to start the restaurant got an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old. He pays them $2,000 a month, and they sit there all day long and make outbound phone calls. Has like his own little call center. Then he's got 2 other agents that are really strong communicators, good people. And then he sets up at the top and kind of dreams, and it's like the magician, right? He comes in, he negotiates big deals. What he really does is coach them every day. You don't even get involved in the little deals, and they're doing, 160 deals a year. So I think the agent just getting started needs to understand There comes a time when winter asks what you did all spring and summer. When I first started my speaking business, man, I didn't just sit around and wait on speaking engagements. I called people every day. I worked the phone system. Like I worked the selling system, and but you got to understand the entertainment side of this. People make decisions when they go to ball games together and sit on the back porch and go to the lake. And they need, you got to understand when you study the top agents, what they do, man, they're great at entertaining people. Like I'm thinking about right now, the great agents in my market of Nashville and how good they are at making you feel comfortable, how good they are at, meeting you for lunch or dinner, how good they are at, like my agent takes me to breakfast every Saturday morning, and we just talk life, success. His team calls me 2 to 3 times a week just to check on me. Like he understands the concept of taking good care of great clients. And I think if you were just real attentive, man, you can make a lot of money in the real estate market if you just work a system every day and be disciplined, but also understand the entertainment value of getting people in relaxed settings, having events, having showcase events. Like the way they do open houses in California is very different than the way they do open houses in some market. I mean, they turn them into parties in California, broker events, right? They bring music in, and they like my top agent I coached in Nashville, her claim to fame was she would go out to LA and see how they had open houses, which is parties, events, large numbers of people. Then she would bring that concept back to Nashville. Well, nobody was doing that in Nashville. I mean, in Nashville, they were putting out Otis Spunkmeyer cookies and a couple of cheese sticks or something. Well, and she brought that concept back, and she was having these parties at these events where there was 200 and 300 people, and she was getting more money per square foot than anybody in Nashville on new home construction because she got more attention for the properties. So I think the clues are all around us. We just got to look out and go, what's that dude doing? What's she doing? How can I do my version of what they're doing?
Yeah, I like the idea of looking outside of your market or even outside of your industry and figuring out something that someone's doing successful and bringing it back to your industry or location. I think that's like a killer tip for anyone out there is like, don't look, I mean, yes, study the top agents in your market, but look outside of it and look outside of your industry. And if you can find that empty space that no one is doing yet in your market and go out and do it, you'll kill it. So I think that's a great piece of advice. I think a kind of a follow-up question, because I like the story of how that lady did that, bringing those big events back. I think this would be a good time to talk about pivoting and adapting to what's going on, because a lot of people, maybe have had success with that event selling. And, since March, since coronavirus, that's been hard to do. So have you seen people that were using events successfully, in-person events? And it doesn't even have to be, in real estate, just in any industry. Like, what are they doing right now to pivot?
I mean, that would be my industry, right? Like I'm a live coach. I do live events all over the country. I was, speaking 150 times a year. A lot of my clients are in other parts of the world that I would fly to. So we've all had to pivot. And what we've done is we've taken it online. Now, let me put it in the context of a real estate agent. My agent that's doing 160 deals a year, that I've been his personal coach. When I started coaching him, he was doing 38 deals a year and making $80,000 a year. 7 years later, he's now sometimes making $80,000 a month. He has a daily show every day on Facebook, right? He calls it the Daily Grind, which is morning sales training for anybody. He's using it for prospecting, by the way. He's using it for recruiting to his team, but he does a daily show every day. Every Saturday morning, he does Saturday morning sales training. And what's interesting is people are starting to show up. He opens it up to the public, and people are actually, like, young, hungry people show up there on Saturday morning wanting to learn, and then he broadcasts it on Facebook. This is a way you pivot, man. Like I've gone to online seminars, virtual summits. When it comes to this greatness factory that I'm looking at, I got a guy in my coaching program that does high-end virtual training, high-end virtual tours. Not just virtual tours like most real estate companies where you can see the room, kind of move around the room, but like where I pop up and explain the vision for each room. And Like you see it, it's really cool, right? So I've got him doing that from my Greatness Factory concept for investors to show people what it would look like. This with walking through the facility and going in each room and me popping up and telling a narrative. Like I think there's all kinds of things you can be really creative. What you can't do is you can't just say, well, I can't do this or I can't do that. Because I'm coaching agents in New York City and agents in New Jersey, right? And I know it's very different than Tennessee, because in Tennessee we're all back to normal. Like people are eating and people are going places and everybody's back to work, and you know, so it's normal for us in Tennessee, but it's not that way in California. It's not that way in New York or New Jersey or places like that, right? So they got to be creative. Here's what I guarantee they're not doing. I'm going to use a context from insurance world. I was with an insurance company the other day coaching their regional vice presidents. They in turn manage 500 agents across the state of Tennessee. They took me back in the back and they showed me a tool that they have. And the tool shows every person in the state of Tennessee and how much insurance they have and what products they don't have. And it gives you their name and their phone number. Guess what they couldn't get those agents to do?
Get online on the.
They don't have to get online. They're giving it to them. It'd be like me giving you, like if you're in Florida right now, Dan, it'd be like me giving you every name of every person in Florida and showing you exactly what product they need. And I gave you their phone number and I gave you their email, but you won't pick up the phone and call them. Well, the same thing is true in the real estate market, is that you have all the connections you need to sell real estate. You don't need more money. You need more people, right? The people have the money. So if I was a real estate agent, what would I be doing right now? I would be highly engaging with my current client base. I'd be highly engaging with my past client base. I'd be pumping out content to my database all the time. I'd be hosting weekly podcasts and shows. I'd be writing the book that I need to write so that I can be an expert. I would be working a system to generate attention and leads to me versus saying, well, I can't do this. Well, I can't do this. Well, I can't do this. Well, I can't do this.
Yeah, I agree. I think real estate is a unique industry because if you just do what you said, you know, that first guy does, like call 2 hours a day. If you do that for a year, there's almost no way you won't make six figures your first year and probably multiple six figures within a few years. And, you know, it doesn't take money. It doesn't take connections. It doesn't take a big education, none of that. So there's almost no other industry I can think of with such a low barrier to enter, but people just won't get on the phone for 2 hours a day.
Yeah. They eat up with laziness and fear, man. Listen, at the end of the day, anybody that gets in that arena that really works a system, it's a game of probability. For every 30 people you talk to, 4.8 will be open and interested. Average person is going to buy 4 to 7 homes in their lifetime. Each home should be worth 5.7 referrals. 67% of people use the very first real estate agent that contacts them. They don't use the best one, the best looking one, or the most experienced one, right? Most sales happen between 7 and 15 touches 80% of the time. 98% of agents never call a customer back once they put them in a home. Like, man, it's an industry that it's an industry you can dominate in, man. You can dominate in this industry. And if you ever get this is an industry that you could dominate in insurance. You could dominate in mortgage. You could dominate in real estate. There's certain industries I really believe with just a big engine and some coaching, you could truly win at the highest levels.
I don't know if I've ever heard it said better. So thank you for putting it out there like that. Before we wrap up, I want to do our hyper fast round. If you're ready for a few rapid fire questions and answers.
I'm ready.
All right. What is the biggest challenge you've ever faced and how'd you overcome it?
Biggest challenge I ever faced was taking a place that had never won in 30 years and turn it into a national powerhouse. It almost killed me in the process. I had a full head of hair, by the way, when I started. It was the biggest challenge, but the most rewarding thing I've ever done as well.
If you had to start all over and you couldn't take your money, your connections, or any of that, your reputation, you know, all you could take is the knowledge you've acquired over decades. What would you do differently starting out?
I would get coaching earlier in life. From 20 to 30, I did not have good business coaching. and it probably cost me millions of dollars learning the hard way.
All right. What's your biggest piece of advice to a new real estate agent?
Prospect 2 to 4 hours every day. High volume, high volume, high volume.
All right. Biggest piece of advice to an experienced real estate agent?
Become a person of interest where people are chasing you, and understand the leverage. Like, I've interviewed David Osborne, #1 Keller Williams person in the world. He's got 5,000 agents underneath him. They're doing 12 billion. He would teach you to understand leverage of other people's time.
Yeah. And he's like running multiple businesses. He's got like, I don't know how many others, like 50 streams of income or something. Like,
yes, interesting guy. But he would tell you, getting to the other side ain't as hard as you think it is. It just takes some guts and courage.
All right. Last one. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully, one of the top 5 motivators in the world. I mean, my desire is to be on the same stages with some of the top people, some of the top thought leaders in the world. That's my goal. I started 13 years ago. I'm ready to play at the national and international level.
Well, we definitely hope to see you there, and wish you well on that journey. And this has been amazing advice. You know, we get a lot of real estate agents, investors on this show, but really for anyone. So hopefully a ton of people tune in and listen and watch. And if people do want to connect with you or learn more about you, what are some of the best ways, or do you connect, or books that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think you just go to coachburt.com, COACHBURT as in tiger.com. You can see all the events that I'm doing. I'm doing boot camps. I'm actually coming to Naples, Florida to do a big real estate event in July. I've got like 250 to 300 people that'll be there. Then I'm doing one in Atlanta, Georgia for real estate agents in July. So I'm doing big events for your industry. You can go to coachburt.com and just check out all the things I'm doing. Sign up for my coaching programs. We have online programs to all types of programs. And we're coaching some of the top real estate people in the country. And we're coaching little baby stars that are just getting started. So I'm open to everybody.
All right. Well, go to coachburt.com, check it out. And thank you so much for being on the show and for all the value you gave everyone that tuned in and listened and watched.
You got it, big guy. Thanks for having me. You guys keep up the good work.
We'll see you next time.
Okay. See you now.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out. And leave some comments about what you think on the videos. I read them all each week, and I select winners to give out hats, shirts, coaching calls with me, and tickets to some of our events. I'll see you next time.